Baby, CreepTime the podcast is going on tour and coming to a city near you.
So head over to creeptime.com to get your tickets to come see CreepTime live.
Well, you can't trust County.
Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Yeah, how did you have? How's yours going?
It was so good.
Yeah. So my brain is just kicking in because this is my first sip of coffee today. And I've been up for maybe like T minus 20 minutes tops.
Good. That's exactly how I want you because I'm about to throw you.
That's how I want you, baby. Creepers, we hope you guys had an amazing Thanksgiving.
Yes. Oh my God.
This is old school, by the way that we're recording this like day of. We used to do this back in like early Creep Time where we would record the episode the morning it was going to drop, which was like insane.
Well, I'm getting flashbacks in all sorts of ways because like it's giving Creep Time year one where like you would text me and just be like, I'd be like at my parents' house and you'd be like, can you hop on mic and like, can we just do a premium episode? And I'd be like, yeah, let me like find a place to record.
I mean, you look beautifully lit. I must say, with these two things, the audio is going to be fabulous.
I brought my little light because I was like, "Good God, it's going to be like a tomb in my parents' house." We're going to.
First of all, I came in. This is my sister's old bedroom, which is like entirely empty now. It's like being in a liminal space.
Oh
like,
my God.
There's nothing in here. It's just me, this little chair, this little old dresser in front of a window. It's haunting.
Well, I was going to say I don't see any windows.
There are none.
So I'm glad there's one.
Well, that's my light source, baby. My window. That's
that
it.
Natural light. Oh my God. Well,
I just snorted. It's 9:30 and I snorted.
Yes, give me the snorts because you're gonna need to laugh because this case. I'm so excited to do this case with you because it hits on something like so familiar for us, which is performing arts centers on a college campus. You're going to lose your mind, I think, because I lost my mind.
Okay. I have no idea what this could be.
So have you ever heard of the case of Sigrid Stevenson?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. That's the case we're going to do today. I'm kind of just like ready to launch into it if you are.
I say go for it.
Okay. So Sigrid, first of all, this case is just like so bizarre. You're going to be so thrown on your ass, but Sigrid was a 25-year-old student. She was an aspiring musician, though she had other artistic passions, like she was pursuing theater as well. But the year was 1977, and she was preparing to begin her second year in the prestigious graduate music program at Trenton State College, which is in Ewing Township, New Jersey. And Sigrid was a supposedly brilliant, like devoted pianist. I even read Prodigy when she was younger, and she had chosen the school because of its reputation as one of the best music programs in the country. And from everything I read, Sigrid lived and breathed for piano. It was her everything. And she had this just like insatiable passion for her craft, and she had such a promising career ahead of her. And on the night of September 4th, 1977, right before midnight, that bright future was tragically cut short. Sigrid's lifeless body was found on the stage of Kendall Hall, a performing arts center on campus. Sigrid would be found mere feet away from her pride and joy, the onstage piano, in what investigators describe as a horrific and grisly scene. She would be found in a pool of blood and in the most ironic fashion, blanketed underneath the piano cover. Now, we'll dive into everything that is known about her background, the crime scene, and what could have gone on. Who would have wanted to do this to her? But the case of Sigrid Stevenson has become a baffling and still unsolved mystery that haunts the campus, which is now the College of New Jersey, and students that roam Kendall Hall because it still exists to this day. But before we launch into it, let me say welcome back, Creepers, and happy Thanksgiving. I know we already said it, but I just hope that they had the best Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I hope you guys really are enjoying it with your family. I'm gonna need to talk immediately about what you just told me. That was a big shift.
I'm like, hold on.
I'm shocked. I've never heard of this case.
I know.
She was found on the stage.
On the stage, and I'm gonna drop a link to our Canva doc because you're gonna lose your mind. Like the crime scene photos are wild.
There are actual photos of
Yes.
the discovery.
Uh-huh. Let me drop this in our chat. Can you tell I'm excited? I'm like,
yeah, I mean, it is very like close to like, I don't know, that kind of eerie thing that we were talking about like theater stuff happening when we're young and like strange lore like about theaters. But I'm just so surprised because it is something that you and I feel like would both really love that I've never heard of it before. And it happened in early 70s, 71, you said, right?
77.
Oh, 77, sorry.
Yeah. So it happened a while ago, which is maybe why we've never heard of it. But when I was reading it, I was like, no way. No way she was found on stage. So that Canva link, just sent it to you. I would maybe hold off for a little bit and not go to the second page where I think the crime scene photos are.
So should I open it now and just linger on the first page?
Yeah, I would just linger on the first page just so you can get like a sense of Sigrid and kind of her vibe.
Interesting name as well.
I know. I hope I'm saying it right. Sigrid or maybe Sigrid.
I may need permission for this link.
Oh no. Hold on.
That's that Thanksgiving for you.
The trials and tribulations. Okay. Hold on.
But yes, to answer the other question, I did have a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I'm so glad. And the whole fam's there.
Yeah, we're all here. We all made it in. Was I the last one? Yeah, I was the last one to arrive, but we're all here in one piece. And we had a turkey. We had lots of potatoes. I don't think we had anything like special or like new. I made these green beans that I'm going to just say slayed the table.
What'd you do to
Slayed the table. I can't tell.
You drowned him in butter.
That's step one for all my dishes.
I know, same. I'm like
going the Paula Deen route for most of it.
Baby, butter and oil. Oh my God. Yeah, so welcome back, Creepers. I'm Stu, and this is Silas Dean. If you're new here, we cover true crime cases spanning the unsolved, survival stories, paranormal stories, you name it. We drop a new episode every single Friday. And if you're new, please follow us on Apple or Spotify. Make sure you hit the bell notification so you always get an alert when we drop a surprise episode. And if you like this episode and you want to give more a listen, we would love that. And after you do that, drop us a review because that's like super helpful in terms of growing our show. And if you do really love us and you want to come see us on tour next year, and you're out west, you should go to CreepTime.com because we are doing an 8-city tour, babies. And we'd love to see you there.
Yes, we would.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so excited. We're getting so close every single day. It's crazy.
I know. What are we? We're like less than 90 days away probably at this point.
Probably, yeah. I think we're close to that.
Oh, baby. I also was going to say, I wish I had my magic mind with me. I wish I had brought it home for my family.
Oh my God. You know what's crazy? I do have some at home actually because my brother and sister have some.
Stop.
Yes. I didn't have one this morning. I just have my coffee, but I will be having Magic Mind later today. But they're continuing. I'm shocked, but because I thought it was for 1 week only, but they are continuing the 50% off deal.
I know. CreepTime. Wait, no, it's magicmind.com/CreepTimeBF.
Yeah. let's put in the tour link. So if you want your 50% off, you can go to creeptime.com/tour
go get
and get your ticket. Magic Mind there. I don't know.
Oh my God. No, but we could have used it yesterday during the Thanksgiving prep. We all could have been in a little bit of a flow state.
Oh God.
But yeah, I wish I had some with me. I definitely would take a shot of it right now. I miss the flavor.
Same. Yeah, now that it's become such a part of my routine and I'm so used to like that flow state it puts me in, and I just enjoy them as like a little flavor shot in my mornings.
Yeah.
It is kind of strange not having one. I hadn't noticed it until you like mentioned it, but I'm like, oh damn, it has been like a few days, I guess, because I was in New York for a part of this. God,
I'm like, we can't even go to the New York. We can't even discuss that yet because I know we'll just talk about Sunset Boulevard and Wicked for 3 hours instead
There's a
of
lot
the
to
case,
discuss.
We'll do that
on an After Dark. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, baby. Well, are you ready?
I am. One quick last shout out just so we can make sure everybody gets their 50% off code. Yeah. If you want to get 50% off, again, this is very limited. I think they are only doing it and extending it to the end of this week, possibly to next week. But Make sure that you get 50% off. It is the best deal I think you're going to get. Go to
Yes.
magicmind.com/CreepTimeBF. BF is in Black Friday, not best friend, because they made it
Boyfriend.
very clear. This is still a business deal.
It is a business deal. And it's literally Black Friday today. What better time?
It is.
Do it on the day, y'all.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, Sigrid, also known as Siggy, grew up in Livermore, California, which is not too far from San Francisco. And she was born in 1952 to parents who were both very accomplished. Her dad worked as a nuclear chemist, and her mom, Barbara, studied economics at Vassar before becoming a stay-at-home mom. So she came from two very intelligent parents. And Siggy was their first child, and music ended up being a huge part of her life, which her family attributes to her dad mostly. He introduced her to guitar at a young age, and he himself was an amateur musician, and he showed her lots of instruments, but she ultimately gravitated to the piano, and she became exceptionally good at it. Now, like I said in the top line, she wasn't just artistically interested in music, though. She wrote, she sketched, she acted. She seemed to have this, yeah, she was very multi-talented. She had this really creative energy that sort of touched everything that she did. But people who knew her also said that she was pretty private and she was kind of a quirky personality. And she liked her alone time. And her ex-classmates stated that she was known for going on these like long solo walks, always with her journal or her sketchbook. And it wasn't like she was disliked, but she definitely was a bit of like an odd bird. And in a quote, I read a quote from one of her college professors, and he said something like, she wasn't eccentric, she was just plain weird, which I'm like, that's kind of offensive, but kind of a crappy way to put it. But I do think it reflects how other people saw her. I also saw the word hippie, free spirit tossed around. But I don't think Sigrid like meant to harm anyone. She seemed really sweet. I don't know how you feel just looking at the pictures of her.
No, I mean, I don't really get the vibe of any sort of malice coming from her. She just seems like a lone wolf, like one of those classic like lone wolves. Like she's very smart, and maybe being a really smart kid sometimes, I think when you're very young can be isolating, or you can be ostracized in the way. And that kind of seems like a bit of her story.
I think from everything I read, she seemed like she really just kind of lived and breathed for her music. And like, we'll talk about this later, but she was sort of like a nomad. She did a lot of like trips by herself, always with her sketchbook. Like she even like at some points would like sell her drawings to like make, you know, a little bit of money on the side. She was just a very artsy kid. But after Siggy graduated from Livermore High School in 1970, she decided to pursue her passion for music and attend the University of California at Riverside, where she also pursued a degree in music. Now, she had always wanted to be a professional concert pianist. That was really her dream.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, but she also had the idea, and I think she got this because while she was attending UC Riverside, she was teaching music to kids as sort of like a side gig. And I think she thought, you know, this might be a really good fallback plan. And maybe I'll just teach music instead of becoming, you know, a big wig Juilliard level concert pianist.
Yeah, that's a lot of like fallbacks for a lot of like young musicians. I remember that like during like our college days, like how many people went into music and then did like a sharp pivot into education. And I was like, so interesting.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's like lower stakes and like emotionally it's just not as taxing, I would think.
Yeah, there's a proper like routine to it, I think you're right.
Yeah. But when she wasn't teaching, she was practicing, so much so to the point that her parents would call and they would ask her like, Sigrid, are you hanging out with people? Do you have friends and other hobbies? But she just felt very content to pursue her passion for music. And she ended up graduating from Riverside in 1974. And between 1974 to 1976, when she decided to attend Trenton College, there's not a ton that's known about those 2 years, but I'm sure she continued to play music. And I saw that she did some traveling during this time and continued to teach. But not a ton is known between her undergraduate years to her graduate years. So Sigrid had become aware of Trenton State College at some point, I guess, during those 2 years, which is all the way on the other side of the country. So despite its location being almost 3,000 miles away from her home, she chose it because it was one of the best graduate music programs at the time.
Mm.
And in the fall of 1976, when she was 24, she enrolled in advanced music classes and she had a great first year. She performed well, she practiced a ton. She did have a roommate at the time. Her name was Marie Di Pasquale, very Italian. And Marie ended up telling reporters later on that Sigrid was strange. She would hitchhike and travel by herself a lot, which she thought
Mm.
was really bizarre. She also stated that Sigrid was, quote, way too friendly for her own good. She would talk to anybody, which I think adds an interesting layer to this case when we think about who may have wanted her dead. And we'll
Yeah.
like unpack that more later. But nonetheless, she had a good first year. But yeah, do you have any thoughts about that statement? Because it is kind of a powerful one.
I think you're like dead on. It's kind of like the same thing of what you just said. I was just thinking, I'm like, if she's somebody who's sort of like, I don't know, like a lone wolf and she feels very comfortable going on solo travel. She hitchhikes a lot, especially in the 70s. I could imagine you could introduce to some very unusual characters along the road. And it's just one too many details that can like link them back to you
Yeah.
where things start to go awry.
Yeah. And like I always think about this too when you're a little too nice that sometimes you don't even clock that certain interactions you have with people, like they take so much more stock in it than you do. Like you just feel like that's kind of your personality is like to be super
Right.
friendly and you're not understanding that like you might have just like opened a door into an interaction.
Totally.
Yeah. But Sigrid was one of those students that lived in the practice rooms. And I remember those students. I don't know if you had people like that on your college campus.
Oh my God, of course.
Yeah. Well, she was one of those people and she would practice day in and day out. And one of the practice halls that she frequented was Kendall Hall, which had several offices, classrooms, practice rooms, as well as two different theaters inside. And one was the main stage auditorium. And I think if you go to page 2, I think I've got like a map and some photos of Kendall Hall.
Should I go
Yeah,
there now?
yeah, go ahead.
I'm very nervous.
Yeah, I think page 3 is the page that I would like.
Wow, it's a
save.
lot bigger than I thought.
Yeah, it was like the huge. I mean, we had one like this on my campus, but it was like the main, like concert pianist hall and like choir hall.
Oh, that is really chilling to think. This is where she was found, right? On Kendall Hall on the main stage.
Yeah, on that big stage.
Oh, that's so eerie.
It's super weird. But like I said, there were two different theaters. So that's the main auditorium. And then there was also a black box theater, which I think you'll see on that map. I tried to circle it, I think in red, but it's in the top right-hand corner. But there was also a costume shop inside.
Yeah.
This was like a big facility. And I don't know if you had this in college too, but there are certain spaces or like pianos on campus where everybody's trying to get in and like use those facilities.
I'm trying to think. Like specifically like certain pianos and certain like concert halls.
Yeah, like you would know like, okay, I know that the piano in like practice room 10 is like a really good one, whereas the crappy one in room 1, like nobody wants.
Oh, we definitely had stuff like that with like specific studios, but I think this is making me realize we didn't really have shared spaces with like the musicians on campus. We were all in like the same drama department, it was called the drama music department, but they had their own set of like theaters, practice room spaces from like the acting department, we had all our own studios. But yeah, you would definitely want to get like one, like maybe the grad studio was a better place to rehearse than like, I don't know, say the freshman year studio, just from like an upkeep standpoint. It was nicer.
Did y'all have practice rooms in your like drama building?
We didn't really. I mean, we definitely had practice rooms, but we didn't really need to use them ever because we were always rehearsing in studios.
Yeah.
You could definitely go up to like that floor, and sometimes I did, but like it seemed unnecessary because all the drama studios already had pianos.
Yeah.
And they were already tuned.
I'm thinking like when I think of Kendall Hall, I think of like very specifically because we had a music hall on campus and like in the basement, there were just like 25 different practice rooms and it was like no windows, very like cold, very spooky. And like, that's exactly what I pictured this place like. Cause like they're in the basement of this building, there were like all those different offices and practice rooms and stuff like beneath.
I was going to say, it seems a lot closer to like what you had.
Yeah. honestly spooks me. Like, it almost looks exactly the same, but
Really?
yeah, I'll press on because there's a lot to get to. But yeah, Kendall Hall struck me as that type of building, and the piano that was on stage, it's like the thing that kids would gravitate towards, not even because it was like the best piano, but because of the acoustics, and you got that feeling that you were like on stage doing your thing. And I read that that was the case. Like, lots of kids, lots of music students at the time would gravitate towards Kendall Hall, and they would sneak in because they knew at night they would sneak in because they knew that was like a good time to get to the piano because not a lot of other kids were around.
That's a really freaky image.
Yeah.
That's a really scary image, like being at a dark concert hall playing a piano for an audience of no one.
Yeah. Or
That freaks me out.
or being in there and like not knowing if anybody else is around.
Yeah.
But the other weird thing is Kendall Hall it also wasn't the most secure building on campus, which is funny to me because the music building on my campus was kind of the exact same way. I don't know if the drama building was like that, but
No, I think they're just like that because they just assume they're like, well, who's really going in there with like ill intent? Like, who's
Yeah.
going to go into like, I don't know, pull a heist and steal the piano?
totally. But in theory, it's like there's so much expensive equipment in those places. They probably should be more secure.
Pennies to the colleges.
Pennies. So anyways, Kendall Hall was supposed to be locked at night, but students like Sigrid knew that one of the back doors could sort of be jimmied open with the right move. And Sigrid was known to do this. Her roommate Marie said that Sigrid was known for spending an entire night playing in Kendall Hall during her first year. And she would sleep over there. And there's more on this later. It's kind of important to the story, but there was a green room area in the basement of the hall that had a couch. And so Sigrid and other music students would crash there overnight if they were up really late playing on the onstage piano. And campus police were also used to this. They'd come in and they'd find kids crashed in practice rooms or on that couch, which is harrowing to me personally, because I definitely had nights like that in the drama department, especially where I'd end up crashing in the dressing room after like studying late at night or having a late rehearsal and then wake up and be like, oh, shoot, I have to like go all the way across campus. But I don't know if you can relate to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There were one too many things that happened on the couches in the drama studios.
Baby. I
Sleeping
can't even
included,
talk
but
about
yes.
it. So one thing I think is important to note, if campus police knew this about Sigrid, that she had been caught in Kendall Hall after hours on multiple occasions, I think it sort of begs the question, was someone or could someone have been watching her for a long time? Could someone have been stalking her and taking notes on her, of her patterns on campus? Granted, she had just gotten back to campus for her second year when the story takes place, but so maybe not. But if there was someone on campus that she knew the previous year, I think it probably could be possible.
Ooh, I'm getting that really like I don't know if you can see, but I'm having that experience where I'm tearing up because it's freaking me out a little
Oh
bit.
God.
Oh, I really don't like that because you're totally right.
I
You're totally right.
I shouldn't be smiling, first of all, because this is a very tragic and horrific case. I'm only smiling because I'm just like, we know this experience. Like, we know these halls. We know what it's like to be like dedicating all of your time to something, which is why oh God, it's so eerie to me.
And it's just such an unsuspecting scenario too.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like these buildings are really unmonitored, but there's kind of a reason for that. It's because they assume that there's really no malice that touches these places or these students because people are truly just coming in to practice, to use them. But the thought of somebody knowing that she's somebody who routinely does that and sort of periodically watching her from the darkness of the audience or the wings, it's very, very freaky.
Yeah. And knowing that she was a loner, like if they had been watching her, she didn't have many friends on campus. So it would literally just be this girl that comes in like day in, day out, plays the piano and is like never with friends, always by herself. It's just super friendly. So like if you did see her, she probably like waved or whatever.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah. Now, from what I've read between her first and second years of graduate school, she did end up staying in Trenton that summer, or at least for part of the summer, until she did a backpacking trip in August, right before school started back up.
Hmm.
And during this time before her trip, she rented a room through one of her music professors. His name was Dr. Alan Lutz. I couldn't find what subject he taught exactly, but I imagine probably piano because she felt close enough to rent a room from him. And during that summer, she also taught music at a local church, Nassau Presbyterian Church in Princeton, New Jersey. She also sang in their choir, so she kept her music studies going throughout the summer. And like I mentioned, she decided to do a backpacking trip by herself where she traveled all the way from New England up to the border of, or I guess, I don't know where Nova Scotia is exactly, but she traveled all the way,
That
I
makes
guess.
two of us, baby.
I'm like, wait, is Nova Scotia in Canada or is it?
I think it. I'm not. I mean, I hope so because I think it is too.
I think it is. I think it is. But I read that she literally backpacked all the way from New Jersey up into Canada and then made her way back down. So she was definitely
Was this before school started?
before school started, like right before
Oh.
school started back up. That was at the end of August.
Yeah, that sounds like a brutal trip.
Yeah, but I get from everything. Well, we'll get to it. But like, she kept a journal the whole time and said she had the greatest time and like,
Oh shoot.
she loved her independence. She loved kind of the nomad hippie lifestyle from what I read.
Yeah, she's super interesting. Like,
Yeah.
like nothing is really I don't know, like categorical about her. She's very unorthodox for sure.
Yeah. And well, that was end of August, like I said. And then it's reported that she was back in Trenton, New Jersey by September 2nd, which would be 2 days before she was found dead in Kendall Hall. Now, she had made plans before she left town. She was set to rent a room through another family. This time, it was going to be a local fireman in Ewing Township. And that was for when she arrived back to Trenton after her trip. But when she got back Labor Day weekend, I guess there had been a miscommunication, and she didn't realize that that fireman's family was actually down at the Jersey Shore for the weekend. So she was locked out of their house. And instead of phoning them, I guess being her independent self, she decided to squat in Kendall Hall for a couple of days, knowing that there was a couch in the green room. And with little student activity yet on campus, she probably wouldn't be bothered. So classes were set to start on September 7th. So with her arrival back on September 2nd, this meant she had a solid 5 days that she'd have to secretly live on campus. And oddly enough, and one of the most horrifying parts of this case, the hall was being used for a local community theater production. I don't know if that joke's going to land for you.
It did. I'm like floating between two modes of like knowing what's about to happen.
I know.
And like also, yeah, the chilling part of like squatting inside of a community theater, production theater.
I was like, that'll be my one moment of levity because we're about to launch into the true eeriness and horror of this case. But
okay.
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, of course. So
just curious, what was the show they were doing?
I was just going to tell you, this theater company they were using the black box. So not the main stage. They were using that black box theater.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was also going to ask, I was like, how would this have happened like in the middle of like Man of La Mancha when the set is up and everything? Like
Exactly. Well, I don't think it was definitely not Man of La Mancha. It was called JB. I've never even heard of this before. So I looked it up. It was a retelling of Job, like the biblical character.
interesting.
And it was a play, not a musical or anything. And I think I already told you this, but if you zoom in, you can really see just how small that little black box theater was. But it's important just to note the like relation, I guess, to Kendall Hall. So the play was running that weekend, and Sigrid was not involved in the play. But when she got to the theater and saw that it was being occupied by the production, she decided to make acquaintances with the cast, and she let them know she was a student there and was probably going to be hanging out at Kendall Hall that weekend. And I read that she may have even recognized or sort of known one of the cast members through her local choir presence that summer. I also read that she quickly became friends with one of the female cast members who ended up saying, "Totally cool if you want to hang out here, and you should come to our show on Saturday night." And Sigrid did. And she ended up watching the Saturday night 7 p.m. performance. However, that female castmate reported that Sigrid came down to the green room area after the show was over and told her that she was having sort of an odd night, like her mood had shifted. She said that she had had an argument earlier with one of the male cast members, and From what I was able to understand, I think she had been woken up earlier before the show by this male cast member because she was sleeping on the couch in the green room. And he sort of got after her and was like, yo, we've got a show to do. Like, you need to get out of here. And I think he was doubly annoyed that when she woke up, she was like, no, it's totally cool. Like, I know one of the girls in the cast and I'm coming to see the show tonight. So it was just a very odd interaction, but it kind of soured her mood after that.
Did she ever specify who that guy was, or was it like kind of an unknown?
They think they know.
Am I getting ahead?
No, you're good. I think you'll think it's probably the same person I think it is, because they are a person of interest in the case. But I think it's probably this one guy named Chuck, who we'll get to in a little bit. But
chilling name.
Chilling headshot also, which you'll see when you get to I think he's on the 4th page, but don't go there yet. But
I'm not. I'm stuck on the 2nd.
Okay. So despite this weird interaction, Sigrid hung around with the cast for a little bit after the show, and multiple actors, when questioned by police later, many of them stated this, that Sigrid had sort of told the group at large that she was going to be spending the night in Kendall Hall. So I think at first she had kind of just told people like in pockets. And then at this like cast party, she kind of like announced to the group that, yeah, I'm kind of staying here overnight. She had totally like detailed that she had this host family, but was locked out of their house. So just keep that in mind, that if she's sharing this now to the group and one of our suspects was in the group, they would have known that she was going to be there after hours and overnight.
Yeah, my brain is kind of spinning with like that information.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, I'm like, how would that be received? Somebody start to plot, or would somebody get skittish about doing something now knowing that the whole group knows? I'm like oscillating between the two modes.
Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't think about that at all. Like,
I don't know. I mean, it may
had
not
it been
be
premeditated, you mean?
Yeah, it may not be that they that's what happened, but that was the first thing that came to my mind, and I was like, oh, I wonder what they were thinking.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because this whole case, I think a lot of it that's very bizarre is it's hard to tell how much of it was premeditated or if it was just kind of like done in the moment. And we'll talk about, I want to get your thoughts on that.
Right, like conceived of, like night of kind of thing.
So according to the cast, they all left at around 12:30 a.m. So we would be in the very early morning hours of Sunday, September 4th. And another weird thing to mention, when they searched the building after Sigrid was found, she had a journal on her. And one of her final entries was that she was frustrated that the actors weren't leaving. She wrote something to the effect of needing to get sleep because she wanted to wake up early and practice piano for a few hours that next morning before she knew security would come in and check the building. She even wrote in her journal that she wanted to practice and get out of the building by 11 a.m. the next morning. Now, let's talk a little bit about the campus police at the time. So there were 12 security guards on campus that would have been carrying a firearm. So like true police officers. And there were also 7 security guards who wouldn't have had firearms on them. However, during the shift where Sigrid was found, only 2 officers were reportedly on duty that evening. So I guess with classes not in session yet, they might have just had like a limited police force, I guess, on campus.
Right.
But one of those police officers was a 22-year-old named Thomas, I'm going to butcher his last name, Kokotajlo, I think is his last name. And his shift started at 11 p.m. that Sunday night, September 4th. So Sigrid,
he was like an overnight. He was like a graveyard.
Yeah, he had worked the same shift the Saturday night before. So that was like his shift.
Got it.
And so Sigrid could have been out and about that whole like Sunday day, I guess, after she practiced in the morning. There was a witness that said they spotted her Sunday afternoon at a movie theater nearby. But we don't really know what her whereabouts were during that Sunday day, but we know in the evening that she came back to Kendall Hall. So at around 11:30 p.m., Officer Kokotajlo spotted a green bike on a rack outside of Kendall Hall. And I think I have a picture of that bike.
I was going to say, it's this picture on the 2nd page.
Yeah.
Which Creepers, we will have these up on Reddit for you if you want to follow along as well.
Yes. And that caught his attention, that bike, because he's thinking, okay, this building should be empty. It's Sunday night. and kids aren't on campus yet. But he paid special attention also because he had seen that bike on the rack the previous evening during his shift. But on Saturday night, he just thought to himself, okay, maybe this is somebody coming to see the show and they're staying late because of a cast party or something. But you can imagine his surprise to see it there again the next day and so late in the evening. So he makes his way around to the front of Kendall Hall, and he said it was locked. But remember, there was an entrance in the back that you could sort of jimmy and sneak into. But the more important part here, and the truly terrifying part, and you can go to page 3 now if you'd like, but he approaches the main doors to the theater, and from the back of the house, he sees something very bizarre on stage. And he said at first he thought it was a prop that had been left behind, but as he approaches the stage, it becomes very clear that he's stumbled onto something much more horrific. He sees a huge white blanket, sort of canvas-like material, covering something. And he decides to hop up onto the stage to get a closer look. And as he approaches, he sees a pool of blood underneath and surrounding the blanket. So he lifts up the cover and discovers the battered and bloodied nude body of Sigrid Stevenson lying face down. Do you see the pictures?
I wanted to wait until you finished before I scrolled, but I'm going to look.
She had been
violent. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
These are legit crime scene photos.
Yes.
Whoa.
I couldn't believe they had them. When I saw them, I was like, oh my God. Because there's a lot of them. That's like half of them.
And there's quite a bit of blood too. Jesus.
She had been violently beaten about the head. And apparently the damage was so extensive that he couldn't even see her face really. He stated he could only tell that it was most likely a female victim because through the blood in her hair, he spotted a sparkling earring. But there was blood everywhere. It was all over the stage, of course. It was on the sheet music that she was playing. So she had probably been playing piano. It was on the piano bench. And then there was this large trail from the piano to Sigrid's body, which was a few feet away from the piano, indicating that she was probably dragged away or pulled by the killer. I just want to take a moment and get your thoughts just from looking at those photos.
I'm still kind of processing them, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah.
It's just a really striking visual to see so much blood, to see it on the sheet music, to see it right directly under the piano. So I do think you're dead on that she was playing piano when this happened. Oh, wow.
Isn't that the most... I think what's so eerie to me is that she was wrapped in the piano blanket cover, like that whole detail, and just freaks me out.
Which it almost seems improvised. Like it just seems it's reminding me of somebody who just like rips whatever's near them to like. But also, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Like oh my God, this is so strange.
Yeah, I almost wonder if the dragging thing, like maybe they dragged her for a little bit, thinking they were going to hide her somewhere, and then they were like, "Never mind, I'm just going to abandon ship and like cover her up." I honestly don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that's like kind of the thought process there. Yeah, maybe they were just panicking and they just thought that like this would help if they just covered the body in a sheet, because otherwise I'm like, well, you're not exactly covering much from what I can see. Like the whole floor is covered in blood.
Yeah, it was gruesome. So her face was also covered in her own blouse when they found her, seemingly to muffle any screams that she might have made. And a few feet in front of her was her other earring and her headscarf, which investigators today who have taken another look at this case, they think that what happened was she was probably in the middle of playing piano when she was attacked from behind, and she was hit over the head with a blunt object so hard that it ended up knocking her headscarf and earring off of her head. Now, question is, what could she have been hit with? Mm-hmm. Well, her autopsy revealed that it was definitely some sort of a blunt object. It could have been a baton, a pipe, or something similar. But what I found really interesting in the research was a claim that there was a 2x4 wooden plank that was used to both balance the piano at times and also to prop open the top for acoustics. This was like an older piano. It was not super fancy, even though it was on the main stage. I think it was like the practice piano. And I'm not sure how they made this discovery. I assume from probably questioning students or through one of her piano professors. There was a professor that they questioned because he knew her very well. His name was Dr. Stanley Austin. He really helped them discover more about this case. But they noted that that piece of wood was missing at the crime scene and it's never been recovered. And it was like known for Dr. Austin and like students, music students on campus, like that 2x4 plank is always there because like everybody knows this piano kind of stinks and it needs like this little thing to keep it balanced or to prop it open. I just thought that was really interesting.
No, that makes a lot of sense, actually. I would never have imagined like a plank of wood being used for like such a gruesome crime, but if it was missing, that makes total sense.
I know. Or also I was thinking, I was like, well, if it was being used at the time, that would have been, it made me think of like two things. I was like, okay, they must have like grabbed it and used it pretty quickly if it was being either A, used to balance, or B, to prop it open. And like, I guess that was quick thinking. But
yeah, wouldn't they kind of lose the element of surprise, I guess?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. But also, though, did you like, would that person have known that that piece of wood was there? Was my other thought. Like,
yeah. Wow. Okay. My head is like kind of spinning with like a ton of information.
Yeah.
That's so eerie. I'm trying to think like which direction this could go because you're totally right. I mean, it would have been, that's such an intimate piece of that piano setup and that setup in Kendall Hall that like if you don't have that prior knowledge, I could not imagine that you would be a person who would just see that and know that that can be, I don't know, dislodged and like improvised like that.
Yeah.
Or that you would have the element of surprise to strike her while she's playing piano. That's so weird.
So weird. And like, that's what really is so weird about this case to me. I personally can't tell how personal this was or like how well they knew her or how premeditated it was. Which I feel like we'll just like continue to kind of talk about throughout the unpacking of it. But it's very hard for me to like, I swing back and forth between thinking one way or the other, just based on how she was found and everything.
Totally. I mean, it seems kind of randomized, but it's so egregious that I would imagine there's like real motive behind it.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about how she was found nude, because that also says something. A vaginal swab was taken and her autopsy showed that dead sperm cells were found. So they do believe that she was sexually assaulted. They also think that may have really been the motive here. It could have been something more sexual and controlling because she was found with all of her belongings. And you can see that in the crime scene photos, but she was found with her backpack next to her, which contained her journal, some extra clothing, her sketchbook, her wallet, which had $7 in cash, multiple traveler's checks, and her ID. Now, like I said, investigators did take a look at that journal and they read through the entries trying to see if she had written anything about someone that might have been following her, but there was nothing. It was mostly just entries about her backpacking trip and how much she loved her independence. And trust me when I say they needed a lead because there was virtually no evidence left behind by the killer. Police were absolutely shocked. There were no footprints, no fingerprints, no hairs, no real evidence that could help them with determining a profile of this person or where to even look first. The only substantial clue, which is pretty circumstantial evidence, but I think it's pretty telling, that piano blanket that was used to cover Sigrid's body, well, it didn't belong to the Kendall Hall onstage piano.
Really?
Yes. And they knew this because Dr. Austin, that same piano professor who was really helpful during the investigation, when he was brought in to help identify, he was brought in initially to help identify her. And when he arrived at the scene, that was one of the first things he noticed. He told police, this white piano cover belongs to a piano that's in a totally different music building called Bray Hall, which is about 75 yards from Kendall Hall. And it was used to cover a super expensive grand piano. So there was no rhyme or reason as to why it would have been in Kendall Hall.
Yeah.
So police were able to determine that whoever had brought that cover would have not only needed a set of keys to Bray Hall, but also that that piano was housed in a room inside of Bray Hall that was also locked. So it was behind another locked door. So in theory, this person would need the keys to Bray Hall, the keys to the grand piano room, and unless they knew the break-in trick, they would need keys to Kendall Hall. And who had access to those keys? Only somebody from campus police, someone with a master key. Now, go with me here. Also interesting, when she was found, she had these symmetrical markings on her wrists, but they weren't able to definitively rule if she had been bound or not. She wasn't found bound. But it's very possible that if you were campus police and you had cuffs on you, you could have used those cuffs during the assault and then removed them after she was killed.
Interesting.
Just pausing there because I want your thoughts, and I want to know if you're leaning a certain way or not.
Oh, I'm leaning. I'm tipping. I'm falling.
Yeah, you're falling, baby.
Whoa. There's just a lot of insane information there. Yeah, that is so specific. I'm really happy you included that detail about the piano cover. Like, how many people could that be?
And
how many people could that be? Come on.
And how freaking weird to be the piano professor and come in and just immediately give police like such an intimate piece of like.
Well, so
knowledge.
Invaluable they had him come in. Like, I mean, that's the reason that you would bring in, I don't want to say locals, but people who are adjacent to the environment or the department, because they know those little tiny details like that. And that could spell the whole story. That's insane.
Yeah. It's so weird for me to think about also Dr. Austin probably being like, okay, I don't know if he did this, but like rolling through in his head, like, are there professors that might have been like, they had it out for Sigrid or like other students?
That was where I was going first. I was going towards the professor route.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, thinking that one of the professors might have done it?
I don't know. Well, only because I know from my own college experience, and granted, this is not a staple across every college, but even before semesters start, often college professors, that's kind of their domain. They live on or near the campus in their own homes, and they're sometimes on the campus. They might know the routines of the students. We've been caught several times after hours. Like in my department, we were caught several times after hours in studios by professors who were there wicked late. So that was kind of the direction I was leaning. I was like, maybe there's a professor who is a bit deranged in secret and knows her schedule pretty intimately.
Yeah. Well, and also they're some of the only people that are on campus right now. Like there were no students really on campus yet. It was mostly professors.
And as cops.
Baby.
Like.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about the cops because, of course, campus police this reminded me actually of the Gainesville murders a little bit. Of course, all the kids are about to come back to campus and they're like, oh my God, they're all going to come back and we're going to be deemed as this like unsafe community, unsafe campus. So campus police like quickly started doing everything they could to kind of keep the story under wraps, and rumors were started. And this is my opinion allegedly, but I would think it was probably from campus police, but they said that Sigrid must have had access to Bray Hall and she had brought the piano blanket over to Kendall, maybe to sleep with, keep her warm at night. But Sigrid didn't have access to Bray Hall. I mean, hell, she was already breaking into Kendall Hall. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, interesting to think about their key system because we actually, you know what we did in college? We had only the grads were given keys to certain studios, but we could like entice them to lend us the keys so we could make copies of the keys.
Ooh.
So we had like we also had like secret skeleton keys that were like passed down through departments. Not to say that she was involved in something similar. It seemed like she really was like on her own path. But just to say like those keys do float around. You might be surprised who has access to places they shouldn't. Yeah.
Well, actually, to your point, she would have been the type of student to figure out how to get access to or get like a copy of the keys. I mean.
Oh, yeah. And do it on her own, too.
Yeah. Now, it was also very frustrating for police, the lack of physical evidence. I mean, it made it really difficult to point to any other possibilities other than somebody that would have had access to that piano cover in Bray Hall. So police turned to interviewing anybody that really knew Sigrid or was on campus that weekend, which wasn't many people. And it was also difficult for them because she was such a loner. It was like, who could they really interview? They ended up interviewing people that she knew not only in New Jersey, but even back in California, I guess, trying to get any information on her. And they spoke more extensively with Dr. Austin, who said that they were fairly close, but she had never expressed to him feeling unsafe or that anybody was watching her or if there was weirdness on campus. So then they moved on to questioning the cast members of that play. And there's two cast members that had very interesting contributions, I would say. The first was a guy named Sidney Porcelain. who was not only in the show, but he also claimed that he was a psychic and that he could help police with the investigation. So he stated that he also distantly
It's a very
knew,
actor thing to do, by the way.
when I read that his name was Sidney Porcelain, I was like, I know this man. We know this man. So he also stated that he distantly knew Sigrid because she had been playing piano that summer in Kendall Hall while they had been having some early rehearsals, and that he had struck up a conversation with her wanting to learn more about her interest in music. But they didn't really keep in contact too well because she went on her backpacking vacation.
Mm-hmm.
He also reportedly asked police if he could hold some of Sigrid's possessions in order to tap into what may have happened to her, which I'm pretty sure police did let him do that, which is insane. And he said that he like,
Welcome to the 1970s, I guess.
I know. And he was like, the letter S is coming to me. Like, it was just a whole thing. But police ended up seriously questioning him because he seemed very odd and was one of the only people that claimed to, have anything more of than an acquaintance type of relationship with her. But when they looked into him further, he did have a credible alibi as to where he was the evening of September 4th. So they ultimately had to rule him out. Now, everything takes a turn, in my opinion, with this second cast member that they looked at, Chuck.
This is Chuck, yeah.
Yes, and you'll see him on the final page of our document, of the Canva doc. But
I scrolled. He is quite a mug.
Quite a mug, quite a character. I also feel like we know him. I definitely know him.
For sure. I'm questioning in my mind. I'm like, I know this person. I know he's eccentric. I know he's maybe predator type, but how dangerous is he is my question.
Right. Well, remember how Sigrid was found with all of her belongings?
Yeah.
One of the items that police found was the playbill for the show, in which she circled Chuck's name and wrote, "Nice man bought me a beer," next to his name. So the other weirdest component, who did Chuck play in the show? A police officer that carried cuffs and a baton, or as part of his props. So also just the weirdest correlation considering the markings that were found on her wrists, and also that they believe she was hit with something like a baton or like a pipe. I'm not sure how, what grade level those cuffs and baton were that he carried, or if they were just play props, but very weird that when they looked into him, that was the character he played.
Interesting. So just to clarify for myself and the Creepers, so this was a community theater production. So he was just a part of the community. He wasn't a student necessarily, or was he?
Not a student.
Not a student. Interesting.
He's a random guy from Ewing Township, New Jersey.
Was he? I mean, I can't really tell his age. Can you from that picture? He looks like maybe he's in his 30s, but maybe he's older.
I think he's probably in his 30s. God, I could do some, because we're going to talk about him a little bit more. I could do some math and try to figure out how old he would have been. I think probably 30s though.
I think these pictures might be from two different time periods. The one where he looks older for sure, but this 70s picture definitely reads like late 20s, early 30s, or like somebody who reasonably, I guess, would feel comfortable to ask her out, and maybe she would feel comfortable to get a drink from him.
Yeah.
If that's how it went down. I'm very curious about how this could have gone down.
Yeah. Well, also remember that weird altercation that I described Sigrid as having with one of the male cast members?
Oh, yeah.
When questioned, one of the female cast members stated that she witnessed Chuck and Sigrid having a discussion after the Saturday performance that she thought was semi-heated. Also odd. So she believed it was about Sigrid staying overnight in Kendall Hall and occupying the green room. And in my mind, it's sort of a stretch, but I'm thinking, well, what in the world would the motive have been here had they not known each other fairly well? It had only been one day and it was over the green room. It just seemed kind of crazy to me. I'm like, would somebody really get that heated about that? But
if it was him, when would he have bought her the beer?
I don't think they bought a beer. I think it was the cast members had a little, they had brought beers to the theater.
Gotcha.
They were just chilling, having their cast party at
I was
going to
say, I was like, was this Sunday lunch or something? I was confused by that.
Yeah, gotcha. No, I think he just brought her over a beer, I guess, and was like, hey, come hang out with us.
Like a peace offering or something.
Yeah,
they had this big blow up and then they were hanging out and she was annoyed by that. And he could tell she was annoyed. So he's like, hey, I'm sorry for what I did. And that's where the idea comes from.
Yeah, I think so. But also that didn't quite correlate for me because I'm like, if this was the guy that she was in an argument with, first of all, also just to write nice guy got me a beer is I would never like go back and write that down in my playbill. I also kind of was thinking,
I know what you mean. I agree with you.
Did somebody write that? Like that seems kind of crazy to me.
Oh, whoa. I didn't even think about that. That he went into sort of like, I don't know, in his mind absolve himself or like keep him like in the innocent category.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. At first I was gonna say, because I agreed with you. I was like, I couldn't imagine that she would go back and write that. But also she's kind of a loner. She's very independent. She journals a lot. So maybe she does like to write things down like that. But I'd be curious about the handwriting analysis on that.
Yeah.
That little message.
Yeah. Well, evidently Chuck's ex-girlfriend came forward in 2011 claiming that she thought that Chuck was responsible for Sigrid Stevenson's murder.
What is it with these people who come forward 40 years after the fact and they're like, I might have some information. Like, girl, step up earlier. Do something.
Step up earlier. But also she might not have, it seemed like this was sort of an in passing. I mean, I guess this was years later that she ended up meeting Chuck and they started dating. But
oh, okay.
Yeah. she was also kind of no. She was also kind of an odd bird, like from the interview I watched of her. So I kind of think maybe
she's dating Chuck from the looks of it. He's also an odd bird.
Yes. Well, and I shouldn't make too much light of this because she said that Chuck, the reason why she thought it could have been him was that he was very abusive towards her. And at one point he had threatened to kill her, saying he had done it before to this girl named Sigrid and he could do it once again. And she kind of just like put it all together, I guess, when I'm kind of curious as to how, because the story of Sigrid Stevenson, it is a well enough known case, but it's pretty not niche, I would say, but I mean, it's not, I just am curious how she put it together that it was Sigrid Stevenson. But anyways, police thought he was a viable suspect. And at this time, they went so far as to like totally re-examine the case because of advancements in DNA technology. And
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. And they wanted to try and test recovered partial DNA from that vaginal swab at her autopsy against persons of interest, one of which was Chuck. Now, sadly, the DNA that they had been able to recover from that initial swab wasn't enough to test against a suspect. So they had to go back to the drawing board and they thought, okay, let's take another look at that blouse that had been tied around her head and face that was kind of used to muffle her screams. And they were successful and they were able to gather DNA from skin cells that had been left behind. But sadly, they were too late. They made that discovery in 2015 and Chuck passed away in 2016 before they were able to test it against him. They did, however, contact Chuck's brother to see if they could run it against his DNA and see if it was a match. And sadly, it was not a match, which I was like, oh God, like he seems
definitively not a match.
Definitively not a match.
Oh my God.
Super, super weird. Like he was really their one credible lead. And we've got 3 other suspects that we'll unpack, but I was like, it's definitely going to be Chuck. Like when I was doing this research. Not a match.
I know, I agree with you. I know what you mean because, like, the character of Chuck in my mind, the way he presents, he's just eccentric enough and like strange enough and had enough interaction with her where it totally would make sense that Chuck is the guy. But there are a few things there are gaps in that story because I'm like, well, we have to contest with the barrier of the key thing and getting the blanket and retrieving all of that and knowing your way around campus. And he's not a student. You know, I don't know that he would be capable of that.
Yeah.
Like basically night of.
I feel like the blanket is such a important clue, but I wonder if maybe police or even I am being too precious about it. Like, I guess there is a shot that it could have just been lying around there, but it did seem like a super odd piece of information. And just, at least I think with all the lack of, evidence left behind by the killer, they really grabbed onto that. But I do wonder if you step back, that it could have just been like Chuck stuck around after the cast party and just like kind of loomed, knowing she would be there and decided
or the killer, like somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, since Chuck's totally ruled out.
Yeah. Since Chuck's ruled out, but in the event he wasn't ruled out, like, could that have happened? Maybe, possibly.
Well, I was latching on to what you said before about maybe if if she had actually gotten the blanket herself somehow, and that was going to be her blanket for the night. And I was like, okay, if she was killed right then and there in the concert hall, maybe it's like what you said, somebody just grabbed what was nearby.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it's interesting that somebody would drag her and then wrap her up in this blanket, and kind of what the thought process was behind that. I really don't know what they were trying to do, or if they abandoned the plan and that's why it looks funny.
It feels, I don't know how you feel. I was going to wait till the end, but I just kind of want to talk about it now. Yeah. It feels personal to me. Like, it feels like a odd, almost like caretaker-y thing after the fact. After they did it, then they were like, okay, actually, let me kind of do like not a burial, but like put the blanket over her and like kind of put her belongings next to her. It just feels very weird.
I have so many questions about like that final sequence, and like, when did her clothes come off, and then when was the body transferred? Like, when was she hit? Was it while she was sitting and playing the piano, so she didn't see it coming? Like, I'm very curious if there are like any details on like the sequence, but that could be really tough to tell sometimes. You need like a proper forensic eye for that.
Yeah, I think police definitely think that she was playing piano and was hit from behind.
Totally. But it makes the most sense from the sheet music and everything.
I'm not clear as to when she was stripped, but I imagine that she must have been bound for that to happen. I mean,
I think so too.
Yeah, because they didn't see like signs of her fighting back, which I definitely think she would have based on her personality.
I mean, if she was conscious.
Right. Yeah. That's another good point. She might have been pretty much unconscious at that point because she was hit super hard. But anyways, let's look at the other three suspects that investigators have thought might be the killer now that we know Chuck is not our killer. So the names of these suspects has never been publicly revealed, at least to my knowledge. But there was a former member of campus security who Sigrid was pretty friendly with. And I did end up watching the Unsolved Mysteries episode on this case, which is super good. I encourage you. You would think the episode's really cool.
I love Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
Is it one of the older ones, or is it like relatively new?
This is one of the new ones. It's like from the reboot.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Yeah. And it's, oh my God, the reenactments they do of her like hanging out with the cast and like going up to this piano. It's very eerie. I highly recommend the episode. It's really good. But the reason why they believe that there is credibility to this campus police officer is that this officer had originally heard a rumor through the officer that found her had originally heard a rumor through his colleagues that one of the other campus police officers had claimed that he killed Sigrid, and he didn't believe.
What the hell is going on with this?
I know,
police? Like,
I know, and he was like,
Christ.
I never believed that it was true, but the fact that there was a rumor getting passed around through him and his colleagues. Very weird.
Is that like locker room talk fodder? Like, talking about murdering a girl? What?
Literally that's so funny you say that. Literally in the episode, they show them in a locker room.
Of course they do.
As they're talking about it, he's like, yeah, I guess it was just like this rumor going around. Like, I didn't really know this officer that well, but I heard through some buddies that he said he killed Sigrid. Anyways, it also wasn't helped.
My hand is quivering looking for a cigarette. I need a drag of
I'm like,
cigarette.
where is the magic mind? I'm like, hold on, let me take a sip of this coffee.
What is wrong with people? My God, I know there are creepers that are yelling and punching the air on the other side of this.
Well, let me make you punch the air even harder, because the only method that I was able to find that police really use to like corroborate or like really look further into somebody, they just use polygraphs on like everybody they questioned, which you and I both know that that's like the most unreliable thing. But
yeah, very 1970s.
Very 1970s. Like they give so many polygraph tests. Anyways, I'll press on. But the second suspect, investigators believe that it could have been the Kendall Hall lighting designer. And the reason being was that when the lights must have been on in order for her to be playing piano at that hour.
Mm-hmm.
However, when she was found, all of the lights in the building were turned off. And because it was a pretty extensive lighting panel, they thought it could have been a lighting designer or an electrician. And like literally when he found her, he had to call the campus electrician and be like, the officer that found her had to call and say, I can't figure out how to turn on these stage lights, but there's a dead body on stage. Somebody needs to come over here. So,
oh, interesting.
But again, what would the motive have been other than maybe they knew her patterns? They thought that she was attractive. I mean, I honestly don't know.
I wonder if this plays into, because I am on this page, the last page, so I do see that there is possibly another suspect here, and I'm wondering if he might play into the lighting thing.
Well, he doesn't play into the lighting thing, but the third suspect is a maintenance worker, but kind of similar maybe to where you're going with this. Remember, there obviously had to be somebody that had access to both Bray and Kendall Hall for that piano cover, if we're really going with that. They reportedly looked at this maintenance worker because he knew Sigrid pretty well from the year prior. He had sort of a rapport with her, and he would let her into certain music buildings from time to time to practice. There was also speculation that they may have had some sort of a romantic relationship, but he was seriously looked at because when he was questioned, he lied about having access to a master key, which would have given him access to Bray and Kendall Hall. I don't think he kept it on him at all times, but he did have access to it if he needed it.
Yeah, not a smart lie for someone who works as a custodian.
Right, not a smart lie.
You don't have a master key.
Yeah, and then he eventually came clean and said, oh, wait, actually, I do have access to both. So I don't know how you feel if any of those final three have legs to you, or if you're leaning a certain way towards one, or if it's none of them, if you have like a totally different theory.
Something perked up even well before you even mentioned him, but just because I saw that you had listed a custodian might have been a suspect. But when I think about somebody who definitely would know how to turn on and off the lights for cleaning, for patrolling, and then for exiting a building, it's not only a lighting designer or a lighting tech, but it might be a custodian. I don't know if these were like proper stage lights, like from the actual rig, I guess, that were on her, or if they were just like overhead, like cleaning stage lights for practicing and whatnot. But we had a whole totally separate like lighting situation on our stage. So maybe that could have been something the custodian knew about.
Yeah, possibly. The only reason I even say that I don't think it could have been is because the testimony of that officer that found her body, him saying that he was like searching through the dark, trying to piece together, and had to call somebody that knew the lighting rig to come over and turn it on.
I did think that. And I was wondering, I was like, because we can only go off of like one or two sentences in written testimony. I was curious if maybe he was frantic enough where he like couldn't actually find how to do it. But sometimes a very simple like switch on the wall could be as simple as something that you can't find when you're like panicking and there's a corpse in front of you maybe. Yeah. But we may never know, I guess, unless we really knew what Kendall Hall's setup was really like. But that was my first thought. I was like, the person who turns on and off the lights. Yeah. It's a custodian.
I was trying to think from our like main auditorium on campus if I would even know how to turn on. I guess I would the only thing I would know how to do is like go find the ghost light. But I don't know if there was like a master light.
Because she must have turned them on and off herself too. If she was in there, she must have known her way around somewhat. She might have been, I guess, sort of reaching a lighting panel, but I don't know where lighting panels usually are in houses. I always thought they were by like stage managers. Yeah. In like the way back of house.
I don't know either how, like, that's actually a really good point that she probably would have known her way around that building, having just like snuck in there so many times and needed to like stay overnight. She probably knew how to turn the lights on herself. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that.
Like needed to like get the lights on so she could practice or like read the sheet music for sure. So either somebody showed her, which very well could have been a custodian if she had a rapport with. But it makes me think that like it was accessible enough that like most people who like knew their way around that space could do it. Yeah. And also, I don't know, I'm just aligning that with the idea of somebody who would have access to multiple rooms in order to get that piano cover, that piano slip, if it wasn't her herself. Yeah. My question around it is like, what would be the motive of the custodian outside of just assault?
I had a weird thought that like maybe, I mean, this is so convoluted, but if she had been hanging out there and like getting kind of chummy with the cast or like even that guy Chuck, I don't know if the custodian was looming around or had been in the building while they were doing the show or whatever, but he have been jealous maybe if they did, like they were claiming that there might have been a relationship between the two of them, or even if it wasn't something romantic, if it was just kind of, you have those relationships sometimes with people on campus or campus police where you can be like, buddy up with them and they give you access to things.
Yeah.
But he thought it was more maybe. And
totally. I mean, if he's pretty isolated in his day-to-day too, and sort of like she's the one point of contact that he's had like closeness with in that setting for a while. Or I was also thinking, I mean, I guess we're just assuming this is like from the standpoint of like a secret like love affinity or something like that, and he's getting jealous. It's very possible they could have had a serious argument or something. Yeah. I wonder if she like would have written about that in her journal or anything, or maybe not.
Yeah. Well, I think they looked into the journal to see if there was any indication, of somebody that was like onto her or being weird to her, and they didn't find anything.
Strange.
Yeah. And I do think that she was totally caught off guard. I don't think that she thought for a second somebody was out to get her or was going to strike.
I mean, there must be very little evidence to link to that custodian if they've never released his name or the investigation is kind of stalled, but that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Yeah.
What about you?
It does. I have to look like first, I guess, at the actual crime, which to me feels very, in my opinion, like control motivated, like, and sexual to me. So I guess I'm just trying to think of someone that had, I think it's weird that somebody would choose just like on the night, like, oh, there's this girl, I'm going to kill her. I'm going to do something and then kill her. I think that's not really where I lean. I lean more in the direction of somebody like a custodian or a campus police officer that had been watching her for a while and they knew she would be there and had the opportunity to strike. Like
I totally agree.
Okay. It feels way more personal and premeditated to me than just like, oh, there's a girl that happens to be playing piano. Let me go smack her, in the back of the head.
Totally agree. I don't get a opportunistic vibe from this at all. I definitely think it's somebody who would know that she's going to be there that late, probably alone.
Yeah.
Which it could go custodian, it could go police officer, but have to somebody's sawing a body in the background.
I was waiting. Creepers, I need y'all to know when I came down to record, the pots and the pans that were being banged about, I was like, this is about to be Bad Girls Club, where she comes in, she's like, y'all, I didn't get no sleep because of y'all.
You're not gonna get any sleep either.
I was like, that's literally what this recording session is gonna be.
I have not heard a single thing. So anybody who did it, don't make them feel bad. But to get back on it, I agree with you. I think it has to be somebody in either the police side or it has to be someone on the custodian side. I just can't decipher, because both seem almost motiveless unless somebody is truly deranged.
Yeah.
Huh. Why would a police officer be joking about that too? The idea.
I know. That's also what I thought was really weird.
What the hell is that about?
But again, I think it goes back to the control thing. Like, if this person, I mean, yes, they would need to be deranged, but also kind of a control thing in the sense that she's breaking the rules. And could that have any sort of, like, he almost feels entitled to do this to her because she's not where she's supposed to be. So, again, truly deranged thinking, but I thought that the rumor thing was so weird, and it was so funny to me in the episode how quickly the officer like brushed over it. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, I'm kind of stuck with this one. It's tricky because I do think it goes in either of those directions. I'm not sure which one would be the more logical, because I feel like we'd have to know those people, like we'd have to know the custodian they were looking at to get a sense for like, is he capable of this? Is he like detached enough from reality to do something like this? But what does your gut tell you on it?
My gut tells me a campus police officer.
Is it the cuffs, the binding of the wrists?
I think it's the binding of the wrist. I just think that that's too weird. Because there wasn't a sign of a struggle from her. And I mean, I don't know what else she could have been. I mean, I'm sure there's a gazillion things she could have been bound with, but I just think it would be very convenient to have something that basically only left behind like a mark. There were no fibers. there was no like adhesiveness, like it was tape or anything. It looked like cuffs.
Yeah, that's the one thing I hadn't worked out with the custodian things, which is actually making me flip maybe. But I wonder if maybe, do you think maybe she could have had like an exchange with an officer on campus, maybe days or even weeks prior, where like it was that kind of control thing where he's like, I notice you practice here and you're staying over here. You're really not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And she kind of had like a, I don't know, like a rapport with him where she's like, listen, it's just temporarily, I'm going to be here. Just like, thank you for like looking the other way kind of deal. And maybe in his sick mind, he thought it would be like a strange tit for tat situation of like, well, if I'm going to, look the other way and do something for you, what could you do for me? And she refused his advances. And maybe that was what planted the seed in his mind where he's like, you're working with somebody, I guess, who's not fully there. Like this is a person who's very sick, but is given just enough power where he could do something like this and feel confident he's going to be able to get her and get away with it.
Yeah. And feels entitled to it. I think that's a very good point, that it could have been a kind of a slow burn to get to this point because she had been there a whole year prior. Yeah. This officer could have been working that entire first year and was like, oh my God, like not this girl again that breaks in and like doesn't do the right thing. And like, we don't know this, but there could have been a possibility that when she had gotten back to campus and she started going to Kendall Hall, that this officer, if it was an officer, that he could have come up to her and said like, you need to get out of here. I've seen you do this last year. You're not allowed to do it this year. And that she was like, sorry, like I'm gonna do it. I don't have a place to be, so accept it. And then like he got pissed off enough that he just kind of cracked.
Well, I mean, I think that could be true. I thought it was also maybe sexually motivated too. Of
yeah,
him thinking,
for sure.
Yeah, like if he's gonna give her this leeway or this runway to do this, that he's expecting something from her, and she just did not at all seem like the type of person who was going to engage with that, and just she was going to do what she wanted to do and be in that hall. And it was great that he gave her the permission, but she was not going to fulfill those expectations to have sex with him if that's what he was hoping for.
Yeah. I also kind of wondered if they meant to kill her. Like, could it have been a possibility that they just wanted to like strike her, knock her out, and then do something weird sexually, but like have her kind of be unconscious? And maybe they didn't even realize that they had completely killed her with that first swipe.
Yeah, I go back and forth with that part too, because I think maybe the first hit read to me as like knock somebody unconscious. And then it's the sequence of events that still confuses me, because I'm wondering when she was bound, when her clothes came off, when the sexual assault happened, because at a certain point she was bludgeoned to the point where she wasn't recognizable. So somebody made a decision that she might have been a witness, or she just had to die. So they tried to finish off the job by repeatedly striking her in the face or the head. Or they did it from the get-go, which is hard for me to believe, but it's entirely possible. I really have no idea. I don't know if we'll ever know, but the motive is the most ambiguous part of the whole story.
It's so weird. Well, sadly, Sigrid's murder remains unsolved, and in my opinion, I feel like the school probably tried to cover up her murder quickly because kids were coming back and campus police didn't want to be suspect number one. They also didn't do a great job memorializing her, which kind of spells out a story to me. They apparently put a special entry in the yearbook that year, but it misspelled her name. And reportedly a scholarship was created in her name, but I didn't see any existence of that, or at least not anymore. It seems like for most, she lives on infamously as a spirit or a ghost, rather than a young woman whose life was brutally taken from her doing what she loved to do most. And it's crazy to think that this was 47 years ago and we still don't have a person of interest. And we have such a substantial lack of evidence to be able to test anything. It just makes it extraordinarily difficult to find someone. No footprints, no fingerprints, no hair, no murder weapon, only that partial DNA sample. However,
the DNA samples, sorry.
Yeah, no, go.
I got wrapped up in
it.
Go.
The DNA sample. I know how you feel about DNA.
I was just going to say, I was like, the DNA sample, if there was enough to test against potentially the brother for Chuck, and it wasn't a match, there theoretically should be enough to test against their other suspects. So I do hope that the pressure on this case intensifies and they can actually properly look at those suspects. If it hasn't been done already, look at the janitor, look at the old officer, look at their family, test that DNA against them would be my hope.
Well, and I wonder, I mean, I think that they've purposely kept those 3 additional suspects close to the chest, but they know who they are. And I know that from watching that episode of Unsolved Mysteries. So there is definitely a renewed interest in this case. I was amazed at how emotional some of the detectives got in that episode. Like there's one detective that lives across from the theater, and he said every single morning he wakes up and says, "Good morning, Siggy." Like he's super attached to this case. There is still pressure on it. But one thing is for certain, the idea of this young woman being attacked late at night, doing what she loved the most is so chilling to me. Just to think that somebody could have been potentially stalking her or knowing her well enough to know that she would be there and playing the piano, and to wrap her up in the piano blanket like we've discussed, it just feels very personal to me. But that's all that's really known about the case of Sigrid Stevenson. And I just, as somebody that's a theater performer or like used to do theater a lot, it just resonated with me so deeply. I don't know if you're feeling the same way, but it's like, it just feels very like I'm there.
Yeah, totally. It's like disheartening to hear about like the way that she's kind of memorialized or immortalized as like the lore of that space, and she's become a ghost of it, which in a way, I mean, can keep the name top of mind for a lot of people. I am just so baffled by the mystery of it, because there, like I said before, there really is like no motive that we can work out unless we know further details about the relationship she had between custodian or police officer, whomever.
Yeah. And I just wish that she had more friends on campus that could tell us more. Yeah. I wish she hadn't been kind of estranged from her roommate, who was like, she was a weirdo, and that was about it. That was like all she gave. I feel like if we could know if there was somebody that had a special interest in her and just be able to unpack more of the motive, that would be so helpful. But
totally.
Yeah. But baby, that's it. That's it on Sigrid Stevenson. That
was a very eerie case. That's a proper like creepy case.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Yeah. So Kendall Hall's still there, even though it's not the same college.
You mentioned that. Yeah.
And people claim that she's like a ghost.
I was going to say, I was like, I know the lore and the fodder has like definitely like gone to live, of course, because like there's a piano involved. So strange. I wonder if there are other cases that are similar to this, because I can't think of anything like it.
Yeah.
Finding a body like on a, like finding a body like in a theater or like on a stage, like at least in the 20th century, like something that's a little more modern. Because something like this in my mind is, for lack of a better phrase, like as melodramatic as this is like something I'd imagine from the 1800s or like the 1700s. Totally.
Yeah. It kind of reads, not to make too much light of it, but kind of like Phantom of the Opera is how I envisioned it. So yeah, it's super weird to think
she
it was
only
only
child. Did they ever mention if she had siblings?
You know what? I was just thinking that because I read that she was the first child.
Oh, okay.
I think she might have had siblings.
Got it.
Yeah.
Very, very strange. I'm curious to see where this is going to go, especially now that Unsolved Mysteries has touched it, because they tend to really reignite like fires under cases.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see if this might develop into something more, because we have seen stranger things. Speaking of the Roamers.
I was like, hold on, how do we not talk about this?
I like meant to bring it up in the beginning, but once like the track was moving, I was like, never mind.
Yeah.
That's kind of insane. Granted, I don't know all of the details. I haven't read all too much about what exactly was found. I'm sure there's still more that they're going to release. And at this point, I don't even know if they can really piece together the story of what had happened. But effectively, they have been found.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
I don't think that they've been able to make the match yet. I think they're waiting on the VIN number from the car.
How many other Lincoln Continentals are hanging behind what was it, a Super 8 or a Motel 6 they were behind?
The Buick.
Oh, no, it was a Holiday Inn. It was a Holiday Inn.
Yeah. That's right. So, oh my God. There is nothing more eerie to me than things being recovered from bodies of water. I don't know why. My whole arm has like goosebumps right now. There's something about that I can't even.
It's like it's the final story of like what those last few moments were, because it's so unambiguous to imagine like what could have happened. Like we just know when a car goes into a body of water, we know inevitably like what those last few moments were like for the people inside. And I think that's why it's so unsettling in a deep way. But truth be told, I mean, that case is effectively just as old as this one.
Yeah.
So I just really can't imagine like how there isn't a way for this to see a solve.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even know if it would require new evidence. I'm just very curious to see like if anybody just still has pressure on her story.
Yeah. I mean, certainly these detectives, it's gotten passed around. Like in the episode, there are 3 detectives that have been in the last like 10 years very interested in the case, but it's kind of been like passed to different detectives, I guess, to get new perspectives and new eyes, because everybody kind of reaches like a dead end with it.
Yeah.
They get to this same place and they're like, God, what are we missing here? But yeah, I certainly hope so. This case would really, that would be incredible if they figured out who would have had motive, because I also think the profile of this person is pretty dramatic. To like go and do this to somebody on a stage, that's a certain type of person too.
Well, I was gonna bring this up earlier. I was wondering too. I was like, and I guess we'll never really know, but I was like, I wonder if there was a sequence of this plan that got abandoned out of fear halfway through. If the striking of her and the sexual assault, the removal of the clothes, the muffling, the binding, if then they had wrapped her up in this blanket, hoping to drag the body and remove it from the building to dispose of the body, and then they were going to come back and, this is in my mind, clean up the remainder of the blood and kind of leave no trace. I wonder if they had just panicked because it was like too late, or they thought they heard something. If this was like custodian thinking they heard an officer, or an officer thinking they heard a custodian, vice versa.
Yeah.
If that could have spooked them, where they were like, abandoned ship, just run.
Yeah. That's really also, you just made me think. You're in a huge acoustically, like the sounds are going to be booming when you go to like somebody over the head. It's
going to feel loud. It's going to feel very exposed. I mean, just from the nature of where you are, you're on a stage kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I would imagine if you're already running on high adrenaline, you could psych yourself out to think that you've heard something or somebody saw you and you just got to ditch. You just got to go. So maybe it wasn't intentional that she was supposed to be wrapped up and left there like that. Maybe it was just somebody who panicked.
Yeah.
Creepers, please weigh in on this one. This
Creepers. I need, because we're gonna go in circles. I could talk about all the different motivations for this forever. Honestly,
truly, yeah, it's so open ended. But I'm curious to hear what they're gonna say. If you guys go to Reddit or you comment on Spotify, I'm very interested to hear what your take will be on this and how you'll imagine what the final moments might have been like in her story.
Yeah, I want to hear too. But baby, that's it. That's our Thanksgiving episode.
I was like, after dark, please.
I know. Turkey, stuffing, green beans. I'll add them all to the list.
That's what's making up my bloodstream right now.
Truly, I ate for 2 yesterday. Like my mom makes the most bomb stuffing. I could not stop eating it. Like truly was just hanging over the
handmade kind of vibes.
Yeah. She did like
scratch.
But she did something different this year. She put like sausage in it or like cranberries and stuff. It was very good. But we all were just like over the thing.
Stuffing is one of the things that I don't usually eat at Thanksgiving. I'm an odd one when it comes to that.
Really? Okay. Do you like Thanksgiving food in general?
Not really. No.
I was like, please don't be this way, baby. Please don't be this way, baby.
I'm sorry.
Wait, dying that you remember we should tell Creepers when you came to my house for Thanksgiving during our tour.
Of course, I mean, I'll enjoy it, but I will never like seek it out. Like, am I seeking out cranberry sauce like 364 days of the year? No.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I don't even like sweet potatoes all that much. Please don't hurt me or like send me hate mail or.
I think a lot of people would be on your side with the cranberries.
It's the cranberry sauce I don't really vibe with, but mostly I'm just perplexed by like the consistency of us going for these turkeys every year and just never getting it right. We never really get it right.
Who's in charge of the turkey in your house?
It's my dad. Like he's always going to do it, but like every year is an experiment.
Yeah.
Every year is like we have to test to see if this one will be better than last year.
Yeah.
And it never is.
Turkey is so hard to my mom gave up this year. She was like, I'm just doing the breasts. And I was like, good.
That's fine. Like honestly, like I mean, it's just such a dry bird, as is. I'm like, why did we choose this for the holiday feast?
Truly.
Like, why couldn't it have been a big, fat rotisserie chicken?
Baby, it still can be. It still can be.
I've had a few years in LA where I've done duck for Thanksgiving. I've done chicken. We've done everything but the turkey.
Yeah. I kind of love that.
Wait, so you enjoy, but I'm sure the food that like your mom makes, I've had it. I'm sure it was fabulous.
It was, I have to say, she outdid herself this year. Everything was so good. Like I think she's perfected some of her recipes.
Did your dad have any like special dishes that he likes to do? Nothing.
The dishes. He'll clean the dishes.
Because I feel like dads around Thanksgiving are either the turkey masters or they love to do the desserts, which I've learned from my friends. Yeah. They're very big on like doing like the pies and whatnot.
Oh yeah. The pie. My dad doesn't touch a dish until it needs to be cleaned.
Speaking of the pies, we're going to tell you this. I forgot if I just swore or not. Did I swear? I don't think I did.
I don't know, but pie makes me swear. So
only because I was about to.
I don't think
only
you did.
because I came here and these two children, Tyler and Mel, they ate the pie before Thanksgiving, the entire pie. So I had to run out the night before, like a bat out of hell, racing around looking for a pumpkin pie. Could not find anything that was open except for a Walmart, and then I was like, God help me. If I can find a Patti LaBelle, I'll be fine.
I was just going to say, please tell me you found a Patti LaBelle pie.
I didn't. Sold out. They had the ones that were like in the Walmart bakery section, like the Walmart bakery pies. So I got it. It was edible, but it was not it. It was not it. It was very disappointing.
So tragic. Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Those rats ate that pie.
Younger sibling energy. To go and eat the pie before
the entire
so
thing.
Good.
The entire thing. I think they started where they were like just gonna have like one little sliver each, and then it just graduated.
That's just
like,
happens.
Half the pie's gone. They're like, we really have to stop. We can't be doing this. And then they were like, we've come this far. Let's just finish the thing.
Eat the whole pie. Oh my God. That's so funny.
Well, now that we're ending on pie and it's a lighter note, shall we wrap?
Let's wrap it up, baby. Creepers, we hope you had such a nice Thanksgiving.
Yes, we miss you guys so much. This was so exciting to like do this day of. It has a different energy to it. I vibe with it so much. But we hope you guys had a great holiday.
Yeah, we love you guys.
We're going to see you on the road for CreepTime the podcast. Yes. Make sure to get your tickets if you're thinking about getting them for a holiday gift coming up this month in December. And we're going to be doing a little giveaway for each city, by the way. I think we mentioned that last episode, but don't forget about that. We did mention it last. I think we're going to start the giveaways next week, I think. But yeah, again, if you want to go to creeptime.com/giveaways, you can sign up with your email and you might be included for any of the 8 cities if you're going to get 2 tickets and backstage passes. Who doesn't want to meet these 2 hacks? Bring us a pie. Us holding up a mirror. We're holding up your go. Bring me a Patti LaBelle pie and I'll never let you go. I was going to say, baby, I was like, don't rank on those pies. The Patti LaBelle pies hit. They hit. That's what I'm saying. I've heard they absolutely hit and I've never had one. You've never had a Patti LaBelle pie? No, that's why I'm so obsessed with them because I've never had one. I'll ship you one. Okay. A lemon meringue. Perfect. Okay. Okay. Bye, creepers. Goodbye and good luck, cuties. Oh, yeah. Goodbye and good luck, y'all.